The Genesis series has grown to be the signal of a new year of competitive Smash and serves not only as a beacon of hope for the community that the Pro Smash scene will persevere for yet another year, but also for individuals who are given a fresh start to make this year their year. So let's take a look at the history of the Genesis series that has allowed it to grow into one of the scene's premier events. The very first event in the Genesis series was held on July 10th to 12th in 2009 and had a total of 290 entrants, which made it the largest Melee event of all time at that point. Genesis 1 was a historic event not just because of the number of attendees, but for a handful of other reasons. First was that this was one of the first events where most of the premier talent from both the East and West Coast were in attendance. This allowed for fans to see hyped up matchups that had never been able to happen before, like Shiz vs Zoo, J-Man vs Silent Spectre, and Cactar vs Pink Shinobi. East and West Coast also met outside of bracket in a crew battle that went to the last two players.
Right now, the fate of the world is on this match.
With the East Coast J-Man clutching it out over Taj by 2 stocks. Silent Spectre of Wombo Combo fame had the best performance in the crew battle, taking 8 stocks for the West Coast, with Mewtwo and Lucky tying for second by both taking 7 stocks. Genesis also marked the first American tournament for one of Melee's future gods, Armada. He had been winning events all throughout Europe in 2008 and early 2009, but many US Smashers thought this was just because Europe was not that strong of a region and that he'd be torn to shreds stateside. He took out Lucky, Shiz, and Mewtwo on his way to the winners finals, showing both the West and East Coast that their top players were no match for his Peach. But waiting for him in winners finals was Mango, who was considered by most to be the best player in the world at the time. Mango chose to start off Game 1 with his Jigglypuff, which was his best character back in 2009, but it wasn't completely warmed up from the lack of use of the event, which allowed Armada to handily take Game 1. Mango then switches over to Falco and then cleanly takes Game 2 on Yoshi's story. He sticks to Falco as they trade games back and forth, and it eventually comes down to a Game 5 last stock situation. And here, Armada is just barely able to shock the world and clutch out a win over Mango. Mango then drops into losers finals and easily wins the Puff Ditto over Hungrybox in a quick 3-0, which allows him time to warm up his Puff for the rematch against Armada. And despite this, and just losing a set with his Falco against Armada, in his hubris he decides to go Falco for Game 1 and gets 3-stocked. This loss caused Mango to be down 2-1 going into Game 4, which he was barely able to win with one of Melee's most famous rest reads, followed by another close win in Game 5 to reset the bracket. After the bracket reset, the momentum had completely shifted in Mango's favor and allowed him to take the next 3 games handily, even pushing Armada to switch to Fox for the final game of the set. There are many other huge upsets in Genesis 1, like Zoo beating Mewtwo and Axe beating J-Man, and there are also other interesting storylines such as Scar's infamous 6th placing and Hungrybox cementing himself as the second best Puff in the world over Dark, but nothing truly exemplifies the Genesis series like Mango vs Armada, which is why it deserves to be front and center. As a whole, Genesis 1 will stand as one of the most entertaining and important Melee tournaments in the history of the esport, and with good reason. The series returned again 2 years later with about 60 less people entering than the last event, but the immense level of talent that came out to California was still the same. There were even additional pot bonuses provided by Saber Gaming at the event that raised the stakes even further. These bonuses actually became the center of a huge controversy that came out of the event that involved the Smasher Zelgatus stealing $6,000 worth of bonuses, but eventually returning them after a 4-hour police investigation. There's a whole lot more depth to the story than this, much of which is covered in Zelgatus' 2015 Smashboards post on the incident, so you can check that out if you want the full story. Now shifting focus to the results of the event itself, there's one player's placing that stands out amongst the others when looking at results. Taj, the Mewtwo and Marth main from Arizona, finished 3rd at Genesis 2 over 3 of the gods in attendance, alongside an endless list of timeless players like S2J, Hax, Wobbles, and SFAT. And unlike Ice's 3rd place finish at the Big House 6 that he fell into thanks to a series of upsets, Taj, without a doubt, earned his 3rd place finish by beating Hax, MacD, and then upsetting the defending Genesis champion Mango in winner semis. But Mango wasn't the only god upset by a non-god at the event. Technically, Every single god of the event lost to a non-god, mainly happening in the round 3 death pools of the event, whose results have partially been lost to time. I say technically because the results of this pool was just for where top players coming out of round 2 pools would be seeded in winners, rather than these players fighting to not fall into losers. So with that spotty context in mind, I'm not going to look too deeply into the results of this pool. But another god still did lose to a non-god besides Mango. Shroom knocked PPMD out of the event on a fantastic run through losers that also included Axe, Lovage, and Wobbles, who were ranked 12th, 6th, and 10th respectively on Retro SSBM's 2011 rankings. But his fantastic run was stopped as well by Mango, who was determined to and did make it back into Grand Finals through losers to meet up with Armada yet again. And this Grand Final set was yet another immensely entertaining display of skill from two of Melee's most legendary players. Every single game in the 5-game set, which was now between Fox and Peach due to Mango's character shift, went to a last stock situation. But in the end, Armada was able to win Genesis 2 without dropping a single set in the main bracket.
He did it! He did it! Armada finally did it!
This marked Armada's first time winning a major in America, and also began a nearly 2-year-long period where Armada won nearly every single major that he attended. Summarily, Genesis 2 was able to achieve the near impossible by being able to provide a satisfying sequel with such an amazing event as its former. Genesis 3 marked the return of the series after a 5-year hiatus, and it came back strong. Not only was Nintendo of America one of the featured sponsors for the event, but Genesis 3 still sits as the 3rd largest Melee event of all time, only behind EVO 2015 and 2016. And with 75 of the freshly ranked top 100 in attendance at the Legendary Series Revival, there is a ton of interesting storylines coming into the event. The one on most people's mind was settling the 1-1 draw between Armada and Mango for Genesis titles. Most of the public believed that Armada would be taking it after rising 1 spot to be declared Melee's best player in the world, whereas Mango dropped 3 spots to 4th after a lackluster 2015. Another storyline was the controversial choice to float the top 32 players through round 1 of pools, which sparked a heated discussion within the Smash community. Organizers of the event said this was to allow top players to have more time for other events on Friday, such as friendlies, crew battles, and meet and greets with fans. At the time, it felt like this could potentially become a standard for events if Genesis 3 went well, but the practice has only been used sparingly at major events since then, like Shine 2016 and Genesis 4. And despite the top 32 being floated, there are still tons of upsets at the event, such as Mewtwo King being knocked in the losers by SFAT, and then being eliminated just outside of top 8 by Nintendo's Ice Climbers, and Mango, who came in the top 8 on losers' side thanks to a 3-1 upset by Axe. But this loss did not discourage Mango at all, as he ripped through Nintendo, PPMD, and Axe all without dropping a game. Then in losers finals, he was just able to clutch it out over Hungrybox in a close Game 5 set, which set it up for an Armada Mango Grand Finals to settle their 1-1 tie for Genesis titles. And Mango was able to keep this momentum going for the first set of Grand Finals, winning 3-1 over Armada's Peach and Fox, but Armada stuck to Peach for the second set and was able to take it 3-1. As a whole, Genesis 3 provided a fantastic start for competitive Melee in 2016 and helped bring one of the most legendary Melee tournament series into the modern era. After the monumental success of Genesis 3, there was no question that the event would return in 2017 to ring in the new year of Melee yet again. However, Genesis 4 was not able to reach the same heights as the previous year in more ways than one, which can be seen most tangibly in the over 100-person decline in entrance. It's hard to say exactly what caused this slight decline, but things such as a smaller prize pool, the choice to float top 64 through pools, or the lack of hype because it was a continuation, not a revival of the Genesis series, can all be pointed to as contributing factors. The event still ended up being Melee's largest event in 2017 and had no lack of storylines. The biggest story coming to the event was that Hungrybox, who was clearly number 2 in the world at the time, was seated 5th at the event due to a thumb injury he received playing dodgeball. He still decided to play at the event and finished at a very respectable 4th, being double eliminated by Mango because of how the bracket was set up. One of the most heartbreaking stories to come out of the event was from S2J's set against Armada. After shockingly winning the first 2 games of the set, S2J was able to bring Game 3 down to a last stock situation. He's able to get Armada off stage, but goes for a forward air instead of a down air to attempt to finish off the game, which loses him Game 3 and is followed by Armada easily winning Games 4 and 5. To put in perspective about how insane this victory would have been for S2J, 0 sets were taken off Armada in 2017 by players outside the top 6. And for the most part, there are not that many big upsets of the event, which can be evidenced by 7 of the top 8 at the time being in top 8 of the event, with SFAT being knocked out at 9th by Westballs. This lack of upsets continued with the final results throughout top 8, although Mewtwo King had close Game 5 sets with both Plup and Armada, and Mango went to Game 5 with Leffen in losers, in easily one of the most entertaining sets to watch at the entire event. But as if it was destiny, Mango and Armada ended up facing off in Grand Finals for the 4th Genesis in a row. But these Grand Finals didn't look like a hard battle between 2 heavyweight contenders like the previous events, it instead looked like a one-sided massacre. In just under 9 minutes, Grand Finals was over, as Armada took 3 quick games off of Mango to firmly secure his title as the King of Genesis with this anticlimactic finish. As a whole, Genesis 4 was a solidly run event with minimal upsets that felt much more disappointing than it actually was because of the amazing legacy of events that the series had had up to this point. And that about wraps it up for this video. I want to give a huge shout out to the Melee Stats team and especially Pikachu942 for helping me out with editing this and getting the correct historical context, especially for Pikachu. He's like one of the few people who still like has those death pools recorded, so him and I had like a whole hour-long conversation going back and forth if I should include it or not, but I eventually made that decision to put that in there. But also he was very helpful for getting historical context, as was the entire rest of the Melee Stats team, and I can't emphasize enough how useful of a resource they've been to me in making pretty much, I don't shout them out in every one of my videos, but the Melee Stats team, a lot of the people who do the seeding for big events and helped many of who had a ballot for the top 100 are a huge help, and I can't thank them enough for how much they've helped me making these last couple of videos in the last couple of months. And just a reminder, Genesis 5 will be streamed January 19th to 21st on Twitch. I couldn't find the channel they're streaming it on, but on those days, you just go to Melee on Twitch and it'll be the #1 stream for sure. And follow me over on Twitter for previews of videos. On Thursday, I put out a little preview hype thing for this, and I usually generally do that for my videos. You can also now sub to me over on Twitch or subscribe to me on Patreon. Patrons will get the videos early. I'm thinking about also giving that the reward to the Twitch subs, because I give it to the $1 reward on Patreon, so it's kind of your own choice. And also because I have affiliate status on Twitch, you get your very own SaveAsUntitled emote, which I'll pop up. It should be approved by Twitch. I can't imagine why this wouldn't be approved. By this point, it's still in the pending process, but you get your very own SaveAsUntitled emote that you can either troll me with in my own chat when I stream, or put it in the Genesis 5 chat and be like, oh, that's a moment SaveAsUntitled should cover. But I think that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this whole history series. It was cool going back and learning more about Genesis 1 and 2. And I've been SaveAsUntitled, and I'll see you guys next time.